The writ applying for the injunction was thrown out. The effect of this controversy was twofold. It sapped the morale of the crew and cast, who were already faced with the problems of working in an alien environment. It gave them a bizarre feeling of being under siege for taking part in a project which was seeking to portray Pakistan's founder in a positive light. None had foreseen this, and all were surprised by its venom and the casual acceptance of its distortions.
Okay, cut it for a minute.
To be honest, I found it incredibly childish because I had expected criticism from other sources. I mean, the film, if anything, is incredibly pro-Jinnah. It puts Jinnah's case extremely strongly. So I can imagine protests from the Indian side, I can imagine protests from the British side. One thing I had not expected was protests from the Pakistani side.
Now, when this nation is about to celebrate the 50th anniversary, the commemoration of its birth, instead of rejoicing in that moment, a small lunatic fringe have been allowed to enter onto the scene, and through ignorance and personal jealousies and vanities and a whole sort of gamut of reasons, they've been allowed to disrupt and disorientate not just the film, but the sort of morale as well.
Reading the newspaper, the tone of the articles really leads you to conclude that that Pakistan is a country of paranoid bigots who don't bother to establish their facts. And the people that I meet are curious, tolerant, gentle, couldn't be more supportive about all of this. And one imagines there's therefore a great schism between the press and possibly the politicians and the people.
It's been quite demoralising at times to feel that maybe we were going to be booted off the planet, that the project was going to have to fold. And that's not easy to do your best work under those circumstances. And I have been terribly, terribly disappointed with aspects of the Pakistani press and how they've treated us. I think it's been the worst, narrow-minded, bigoted kind of nonsense I've ever come across.
The conspiracy theory, I love the stuff in the papers. We've had everything from Salman Rushdie to Elvis writing the script on this thing.
But more importantly for the film, the stories in the press led to the withdrawal of £1 million of funding promised by the government of Pakistan. This loss of crucial revenue almost scuppered the whole project.
When we actually went for the filming, we assumed that the agreements under which the government of Pakistan was to give us £1 million through the PTV, through Pakistan Television, would be forthcoming. Once filming began in the middle of the shoot, that money was no longer available to us. So it was a terrible moment of crisis. We were inches away from a crash, the whole film crashing.
In a bid to raise the shortfall privately, the film's executive producer Akbar Ahmed went on the offensive. His defence of the film as the first time in 50 years that Jinnah's legacy was being reassessed on screen by a Muslim Pakistani convinced many ordinary Pakistanis to invest in the project and see it through to its conclusion.
We are at a critical juncture of our history, and you talk about accountability of these gentlemen. Let the people judge. If they don't like the movie, they'll burn the film. Dr. Akbar Ahmed will not be able to come back to Pakistan. Let the people be judge.
Ahmed's reappraisal of the roles played by figures central to the story of partition also raised some British hackles. In particular, his revision of the character of Mountbatten, the last British viceroy, and his wife Edwina, meant that further controversy would precede the film.
I know he's an Englishman.
And the only way he knows is to lend me to you.
Got it?
I want to make a pact with you, to keep what is between you and me free from any matters of politics.
But Ahmed perceived the project as Pakistanis reclaiming their history. It's a hot, airless film studio in Karachi. The crew and cast of Jinnah are setting up to film a crucial scene. Both tension and humidity are running high. Suddenly, The elaborate bamboo set collapses. Luckily, no one's injured, but for the British crew, the collapse symbolises the problems they've encountered in Pakistan. The local crew and extras don't bat an eyelid. It's all part of making a film in Pakistan.
Turn over. Sounds rolling. 454, big one.
Shooting on the film began in early February and would last until May. The crew and cast had arrived in Pakistan equipped with little more than a script. The script itself had been co-written by the film's executive producer Akbar Ahmed and director Jamil Delvi. It was unconventional in that it would not be a straightforward narrative of Jinnah's life, but worked as a series of flashbacks.
We've used a device whereby Jinnah comes back to review his own life. So that's a different angle. It's not just a straight biography. And immediately that pulls you into the story.
All the way back now, it's the wrong way.
Few of the British crew had been to the country before, and as the filming process was to unfold, unfamiliarity with their environment was to present its own dilemmas.
Keep complaining all the time because so many things are so frustrating. And like just simple little things, you feel like you're banging your head against a brick wall, and yet things that you think are going to be difficult are not a problem.
It's not any different apart from the speed that people work at. It just takes so much longer to get anything done.
You think you've got everything sorted out, but suddenly experts come at you from every possible angle. There's hundreds of different people come out and say, no, that's not quite right, or that chicken's the wrong shade, or all that sort of thing for 1940, and you have to go with them.
Anything with time involved where they say, will be an hour, give it maybe 3 hours. If people say something's done, don't believe them, because it's not. Until you actually physically see the proof, it's not going to be done. So there's a lot of chasing and pushing, and I think that's taught me a lot more patience than I normally have.
We've had to basically tell many of the local crew who have no experience even in television, this is what we're doing, this is what we're trying to do, this is how we do it, this is the best way to do things. And of course people don't know, so they tend to make mistakes, which is only natural. It's only really frustrating when they make the same mistakes over and over and over again.
Lord and Lady Brabourne, Lady Mountbatten's mother-in-law, a couple of teenage lads and an Irish boatman. So these are hard to find in Karachi. You try finding Irish boatmen in Karachi, I tell you, it's not an easy task.
Here, and we've used tailors here.
It became all too much for the costume designer, who not only designed the entire wardrobe, but had to dress the cast and hundreds of extras. The lack of professionalism that arose from the inexperienced extras not paying attention to the importance of continuity and keeping their dress true to history drove her to leave the project early on.
This is not good, is it?
Filming would begin at 6 in the morning to avoid the heat, especially in the latter months of the project. The stars would come out of their 5-star hotels and into air-conditioned coaches. The extras would often be made to swelter in the heat. Jinnah had been conceived as a period drama depicting the lives of real people, many of whom were known to people still alive. Authenticity in sets, costumes, sound and makeup was crucial to enhance the film's credibility.
This is a period film. I mean, we're back in the 20s and the 30s. You can be in a building that looks 100 years old with actors dressed in period costumes, but I'm afraid the sound sounds like 1997.
Turn over.
473, take 3.
Mr. Jinnah,
The Prime Minister has given me full powers. I decide. That's why I'm here, as representative of the King Emperor.
Whom we respect. And I am here as a representative of a Muslim nation, which you must learn to respect.
The makeup artists resurrected the dead heroes of the Pakistan movement.
We had a special hair piece made because Jinnah has this silver streak which is so characteristic. Christopher's ears are very, very flat. So we've had little pieces which we put behind his ears to make the tips of his ears stick out, which makes his face a slightly different shape. We had to bleach Christopher's eyebrows, which he was very nervous about because he's never had that done before.
Normally my eyebrows are black. In order to achieve the grey effect of the eyebrows, greyish-white, which is where, it is necessary to bleach them first and then put the grey colour on. Because if you put grey or silver onto black eyebrows, it comes out on the screen bluish colour, which of course is absurd.
Derek Lloyd does Sam's makeup, and when I first saw a picture of Sam, he looks a little bit like Gandhi, but he is wonderful, Sam, because as the makeup goes on with quite a lot of really good actors, they just slowly become the character, and then the voice starts to change, and he goes totally into character. He's also had gums. I think you filmed him trying to slip his gums on because Gandhi lost his teeth towards the end of his life.
When I had to be the youngest Fatima, I had to have a neck lift, which sort of takes a few years off the neck. And it sounds painful, it's not too awful, but you sort of get hoisted around the back of your neck to take a bit of the old age away. As I've become older, I move into the latex treatment.
And it's a method where you stretch the skin, you stipple the latex over the top, dry it, powder it, and then it all concertinas into these wonderful, wonderful wrinkles. And it's a very nice, subtle way of sort of aging the skin.
The makeup people have done a remarkable job because they've made me look really quite like him, I think. It's like putting on a suit. That's how I feel about it, in a way. It's like dressing yourself. You're putting on your clothes, and when everything is in place, you are the person you're supposed to be.
The crowds that appeared to watch filming were sometimes overwhelmed.
Everybody taking my hand and practically pulling me out of the car and shouting, Pakistan Zindabad, Quaid-e-Azam Zindabad, and meaning it. And to some of the very old people, I think they were quite stunned, actually, because some of them may well have thought that he'd actually come back.
One unexpected find for the production team was a fleet of classic cars, lovingly preserved by a car enthusiast.
We've used a guy called Jim Khan, who runs the Pakistani classic car company. Amazing. I couldn't believe there was anything still in one piece. If you look at the stuff on the roads, anything older than about 6 months is covered in dents, so it's odd finding a 1934 Packard Bel Air in sort of immaculate condition.
I believe Mr. Jinnah had a Packard which he used for the victory parade, and they wanted to use a similar car, and this was the closest, I suppose, from that era. And I felt normally I wouldn't get involved with all these things, but this was the right kind of cause, of course. It was more of a sense of duty. I couldn't exactly say no.
For one car, we had to actually buy some tires. Tires were not available for that size. So we went into the junkyards and we got 4 tires for one car that was used for Jinnah. That is a 1930s Buick.
The filmmakers had been refused permission to film in India because of political constraints. This meant that locations all across India had to be recreated in Pakistan. Jinnah's goodbye to his daughter Dina in Bombay, a Sikh mob attacking a refugee column in Indian Punjab, and Gandhi's arrival at a train station in Bengal were all filmed around Karachi.
But the big problem we had was with the train. The bureaucracy in any rail network, I think, is huge, but in Pakistan, rail network is bigger than most. And Malcolm, our props buyer, had to deal with a gentleman who was basically Mr. Big, with all the rolling stock. And he was wearing like a proper dust jacket, like an overall, but it was silk lined, so you could tell he was quite important. And he said that he wanted 200,000 rupees to get the train actually rolling. And we said we didn't need it rolling, that we were going to push it, we just needed steam to come out. And he's, no, 200,000 rupees. Anyway, the train turned up, and nobody had bothered telling the engineer and the driver that we didn't want it fired up, so they just fired it up, and we had steam. But then Mr. Big found out that this was happening, and he still hadn't got his money, so he made them turn it all off. So we had to wire up the whole train with smoke machines and pipes and stuff, try and make it look like steam. So I think it came off, I'm not sure.
Stop, 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 stop!
It is always a pleasure to meet Mr. Jinnah.
Some of the shortfall in funds was made up by the help that the Pakistani government and army gave the project. Thousands of extras were provided free of charge to lend authenticity to important scenes. The presidential bodyguard was drafted in to provide escorts for Jinnah in some scenes. Prominent locations around the country were put at the crew's disposal without any charge. The project, already hampered by its low budget, was further hit when the Pakistan government refused to honour the previous government's commitment to release funds for the film. This meant that Akbar Ahmed had to hold fundraising events that would make up for the shortfall. Fortunately for Ahmed, there were enough prominent and wealthy Pakistanis who shared in his vision to make up the loss in funding.
Okay, this is Pakistan's 50th anniversary. How best can we pay a tribute to our founder? And we all decided that the best way to do that would be to support every Jinnah affiliated institution and those which have been dedicated to his memory.
There's a search throughout the world today, I believe, for role models for everybody, for young and old. And where better than to have a role model in Jinnah?
I'll stake my neck out for Jinnah, because Jinnah is not the founder of Pakistan, he's not the father of the nation. He is my father and he's your father.
Several years ago, some friends got together and we began what we now believe was a historic mission. It was an attempt to define ourselves as a nation, to define our identity, where we were going, what was wrong with us. It was a very ambitious project. It was a project on Qaid-e-Azam. We believed that unless we understood Qaid-e-Azam, unless we understood Mr. Jinnah, we could not understand ourselves. No Jinnah, no Pakistan. If you do not understand Jinnah, you cannot understand Pakistan. This is a film being made under almost impossible circumstances. The government has withdrawn the money, 1/3 of the budget has gone. Why doesn't he collapse? And my answer, my friends, is you. I have not collapsed because of you, and inshallah I will not collapse. We will get there, and I'll get there because of you.
Ahmed also embarked on a public relations offensive, initially to counter the hostile press the project was getting, and later just so the film could be finished. Actors and crew were co-opted into press conferences and impromptu on-set visits by journalists and others Ahmed was seeking to influence. Although worthwhile in the end because the film was completed, these events lent the production a chaotic air which some actors found difficult to deal with.
I was in the middle of quite a long and complicated scene with Fatima Jinnah, and the 30 pressmen arrived for a press conference, which is about the most kind of unprofessional thing. So I said, no, they have to wait until the scene is finished. And then, they can photograph us or whatever they want, which is, in a way, rather gracious anyway. And in the paper the next day, it said how incredible and obviously wishing to conceal something it was that they weren't allowed to watch the filming. And I concluded it's because in Pakistani movies, they dub afterwards. So sound is not an issue, and people don't have to remember their lines, and they don't have to concentrate. And so the people who are writing about this film have not the smallest idea what the process is. And that becomes a little irritating.
In May, filming in Pakistan ended. Crew and cast went back to London to film some final scenes there. Despite every hurdle being put in its way, Jinnah would flicker into life on the silver screen. To dare to dream is to dare to succeed. Pakistan couldn't have been possible if millions across India hadn't shared Jinnah's daring dream. 50 years later, two men dared to fulfill their dream of committing Jinnah's story on film.
What kept me going, what inspired me was Mr. Jinnah himself, because I know that under extreme pressure, when his health had collapsed, he just would not give up.
He was an admirable man, and I think that the example he set for Pakistan was an important one.
My hero is Mr. Jinnah, and he never gave up.
Certainly the initial brief was to make a film that was a tribute to a man who founded a nation against all odds. And I think that comes across very well in the film.